کنفرانس جهانی همزمان با اعلام حکم دادگاه. ارتباط زنده آنلاین با مجاهدین در اشرف 3، دادگاه آنتورپ، شخصیتهای بین المللی و شاکیان خصوصی و یاران شورشگر. 3000 نقطه در 40 کشور جهان. پنجشنبه 4 فوریه 2021، 16 بهمن. قسمت 4.
سخنرانیهای جان برد، وزیر خارجه پیشین کانادا، پاتریک کندی، سناتور رابرت توریسلی، دیوید کیلگور، وزیر مشاور پیشین خارجه کانادا، طاهر بومدرا، نماینده دبیر کل ملل متحد در اشرف.
جان برد، وزیر خارجه کانادا 2015. این سفارتخانه‌ها و حسن روحانی رئیس جمهور رژیم بودند که با بکارگیری ابزار تروریستی گردهمایی مقاومت ایران با شرکت ده‌ها هزار تن را هدف قرار داده بودند و مهمترین که خانم مریم رجبی را هدف قرار داده بودند.
پاتریک کندی: حکم دادگاه بلژیک یک نقطه عطف برای جامعه اروپا و برای تمام جهان است، نه فقط در رابطه با رژیم بلکه به طور خاص با نمایندگان این رژیم و ظریف وزیر خارجه این رژیم.
سناتور رابرت توریسلی: در دادگاه آنتورپ 4 مجرم دیپلمات رژیم و مأموران وزارت اطلاعات بودند، اما مجرم اصلی ظریف و رژیم آخوندها هستند. نامگذاری وزارت اطلاعات این رژیم به عنوان یک دستگاه تروریستی یک کار اساسی و ضروری است.
دیوید کیلگور، وزیر مشاور پیشین امور خارجه کانادا: این پرونده عملیات سفارت‌های رژیم ایران تحت پوش مصونیت دیپلماتیک و شبکه جاسوسان و خبرنگاران دوست برای شیطانسازی و محو فیزیکی سازمان یافته‌ترین اپوزیسیون رژیم یعنی شورای ملی مقاومت را افشا کرد. طاهر بومدرا، نماینده دبیر کل ملل متحد در اشرف 2012. حکم دادگاه آنتورپ الگوی خوبی برای سیستم حقوق بشر سازمان ملل است. مطمئن هستم در رابطه با پرونده قتل عام 67 نیز عدالت محقق خواهد شد.
کنفرانس جهانی همزمان با اعلام حکم دادگاه. ارتباط زنده آنلاین با مجاهدین در اشرف 3، دادگاه آنتورپ، شخصیتهای بین المللی و شاکیان خصوصی و یاران شورشگر. 3000 نقطه در 40 کشور جهان. پنجشنبه 4 فوریه 2021، 16 بهمن. قسمت 4.
سخنرانیهای جان برد، وزیر خارجه پیشین کانادا، پاتریک کندی، سناتور رابرت توریسلی، دیوید کیلگور، وزیر مشاور پیشین خارجه کانادا، طاهر بومدرا، نماینده دبیر کل ملل متحد در اشرف.
For more than 40 years now, the Iranian regime in Tehran has been supporting state-sponsored terrorism right around the world. They've focused on the Middle East, they focused on the regime's enemies, and they focused on innocent civilians. Another big example of this happened on June the 30th, 2018, when the National Council of Resistance of Iran was having their annual gathering outside of Paris, France. Tens and tens and tens of thousands of people attended to call for regime change, to support the NCRI, and to lend their support to the group's leader, Miriam Rajavi. After the event, it was discovered when an Iranian regime diplomat was arrested that the Iranian regime, including Hassan Rouhani, the president of the regime, were targeting the gathering, targeting the NCRI, targeting civilians, and most importantly, targeting Miriam Rajavi. Their goal was simple: to cause as much death and casualties by terrorist means through financing and through direct support. The most disturbing part of this is that an Iranian regime, an accredited diplomat representing the regime with a diplomatic passport, has been charged with the attack, the attempted attack. The evidence collected by the Belgian authorities, put on a trial last November and December, is strong, it's clear, it's undeniable. And let's recommit ourselves to work with all aspects of Iranian society, whether it be student groups, unions, other opposition groups, the NCRI, that we stand up against this regime, and that a better day comes for the Iranian people.
Today is a historic day. Today is a day that there's no turning back from. It's a turning point for the European community and the rest of the world, not only with the regime in Iran, but particularly with their representative, Foreign Minister Zarif. You see, we've always known Iran to be behind numerous acts of terrorism, not only throughout Europe, but throughout the world. But today, the evidence is overwhelming. Today, the evidence is damning. The Iranian regime was caught red-handed. They're not denying it. Their only defense is to plead diplomatic immunity, as if diplomatic immunity protected terrorism. Because in their defense, Asadi said that they are essentially using the whole diplomatic corps as a foreign operation for their terrorism and their exploits. Make it very clear to the mullahs in Iran that we know that their existential threat was Madam Rajavi and the PMOI and the NCRI, because that's who they were targeting. It's not anyone's claim. The proof is in this trial. The proof is, why would the whole Iranian diplomatic system go to such lengths to seek to blow up a rally celebrating democracy and freedom coming to the Iranian people? That clearly is the enemy of the current regime in Iran, that is wreaking havoc over human rights in Iran. We have seen it not only in the 1988 massacre of over 30,000 protesters, but we have seen it in numerous massacres since, especially in the last few years of uprisings. It's time to face the facts. It's time to call Iran for what it is, a terrorist state. It's time to expel their diplomats. It's time that we have a new Iran, that we support NCRI, we support the 10-point plan of Madam Rajavi, and that we support a new day for all Iranians who can finally be freed of this terrorist regime, who terrorizes not only Iranians but terrorizes the world. Man Irani Hastam. Long live the people of Iran.
My congratulations to all of those who joined with me in Paris and would have been victims of this terrorist plot on today's verdict, to all of those who have fought so hard in the MEK for Iranian freedom, and to Iranian patriots everywhere who want to restore the good name of Iran and create a free and democratic republic in Tehran. There is no mistaking that today is an extraordinary victory. These four individuals, posing as Iranian diplomats, agents of the regime, have been found in a court of law, in a free, open, and fair process, guilty of acts of terrorism. Any debate about the Iranian regime's involvement in acts of terror, murder, is now over. It's established as a matter of law, a matter of fact, that it was the intention of the mullahs in Tehran to murder Mrs. Rajavi and all of us who were there doing nothing more than in free expression, in France, the heart of a Western democracy, petitioning the Iranian government to let its people live free lives. And now the verdict is in, and these four individuals will pay with years or decades of their freedom. But what's not done? They didn't act alone. Indeed, interestingly, they never even pled innocence. All they were arguing is that they shouldn't be tried because they were diplomats. They didn't claim they weren't terrorists. They didn't claim they weren't trying to commit murder. They claimed they were diplomats. Well, their pleas have been rejected. Now, where do we go? First, let's just be honest with each other. While these four individuals were guilty, they were members of the Iranian government, agents of the Ministry of Security and Intelligence. The real culprit that should be on trial, Zarif, was not there, but he remains guilty. And for all in the international community who seek justice, he and his subordinates are yet to be apprehended and tried, but they are guilty, as is the larger regime. International diplomacy, using the status of a diplomat to transport explosives, to plan murders, to move agents with the intent of killing, is as much of a violation of international law as is possible. So what do we do? First, for those nations who have not done so, designating Zarif, designating the ministry as a terrorist enterprise is essential. Sanction it, call it out for what it is, a terrorist enterprise. All Western governments, if you have confidence in your own courts, if you believe your own prosecutors, if you're willing to be honest with the evidence, what choice do we have? These are judgments my own government, the United States, have made, but now must be made by countries in the EU and Britain and a host of other nations. You have confidence in your courts, follow their lead. Second, the Iranian people. If you doubted before the claims of the United States and other Western nations that the Iranian regime is a terrorist government, is there anything left now to discuss or debate? In a free, open court, they have been found guilty of using their own agents to commit terrorism. So all of us have a role to play. Now, as I've suggested, other governments need to speak by designating as terrorist acts, certainly designating Zarif as a terrorist. And then the Iranian people. You've seen the evidence. You've seen what has happened. The MEK and Mrs. Rajavi have provided the leadership and the inspiration. Just as today, there is a verdict. History and future courts, as assuredly the mullahs will one day sit in a docket, in a jury, in a trial in Tehran for their crimes, as agents of the Ministry of Interior, as Arif himself will sit in a jury docket. As sure as that will happen, today we celebrate this great victory. Congratulations again. My thanks and admirations for the police, for the judges, for the juries of Western Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Gonzalez.
I first want to congratulate the NCRI and its president-elect, Marian Rajavi, for pursuit of justice and exposing the regime's malign activities and human rights abuses. The NCRI has documented about 450 terrorist operations around the globe in the past 4 decades. Many of its members were assassinated in Europe, including Professor Kazem Rajavi in Switzerland and Hossein Nagdi in Italy. But as Iran's Foreign Minister Zarif himself admitted, in Iran, major decisions are not made without the approval of the supreme leader. As a former prosecutor, I cannot agree more with the conclusion of the Belgian prosecutors that this operation is an act of state terrorism and not an isolated terrorist act. The case also exposes the Iranian embassy's operations under the cover of diplomatic immunity, and indeed running a network of spies and what they call friendly reporters, in quotation marks, to demonize and try to physically annihilate the most viable and organized opposition to the regime, namely the NCRI. We in Canada have our own grievances over what the regime in Iran has inflicted on us. From the killing under torture of photojournalist Zahra Kazemi to the more recent killings of 176 passengers and crew of the Ukrainian flight just a year ago near Tehran, where at least 57 Canadians were also killed. The Canadian Friends of a Democratic Iran, which I co-chair, has on numerous occasions called for the terrorist designation of the IRGC. We believe that the 10-point plan of Mrs. Rajavi, including the separation of religion and state, universal suffrage, and gender equality, is the key for peace and combating terrorism in all its forms in the region and well beyond. Thank you. Merci mille fois.
Mrs. Rajavi, my friends in Ashraf 3, my friends in Iran, and indeed all over the world. Today, the truth, the rule of law, justice has prevailed over impunity. Indeed, impunity has failed. And through this verdict, it's not only Asdallah Assadi who has been convicted, it's the whole regime. The Iranian regime as a whole has been proven before a court of law, being behind the crimes of assassinations and crimes that amount to crimes against humanity. So I take this opportunity to join my voice to the previous speakers to call on the EU and its member states to start a new type of relationship with this regime. A new relationship that would leave no room for complaisance. A new relationship that would hold all criminals accountable for their acts. And I think today's verdict is a very good example and a source of inspiration for the United Nations human rights system. Let's keep in mind that the 1988 massacre of the political prisoners is still to be accounted for. And I'm sure, again, regarding this issue of 1988 massacre, justice will prevail again. Mubarak, Mubarak, Mubarak to all of you in Iran, in Ashraf 3, and to you, Mrs. Rajavi. Thank you.